Hey y'all, this is Amanda and welcome back to my Texas Zone 8A garden. And today I'm going to be planting up a bunch of beautiful amaryllis bulbs in a really kind of fun, naturalistic, rustic way. And I'm going to be talking about the new houseplants that I picked up from Tractor Supply. Okay, so I was at Tractor Supply the other day, specifically looking for plants that were 50% off. I was originally looking for ones to plant in my garden, but I ended up coming across a bunch of their house plants that were on sale. So I ended up picking up several of them. They were all 50% off, and it's my understanding that they're all 50% off at all Tractor Supply right now. All of their plants are 50% off. So I want to go over this a little bit with you. Houseplants aren't like the thing I'm good at. I really feel like growing houseplants inside is a completely different situation than working out in the garden. And so houseplants for me only last a couple of years because I am neglectful of my my houseplants. I definitely have a survival of the fittest situation with mine. Hopefully they thrive on neglect, and if they do, they're probably going to make it in my house. But let me just quickly go through this, tell you a little bit about what they are, which ones they are, and how much they cost. I'm not going to go into how to care for houseplants. It's not me. It's not my thing. And there are a lot of better people who have a lot more knowledge than me who can talk to you about this, these as well. Now, all of these came in their own container with a removable plant saucer or pot saucer at the bottom. I selected them all for a bright, beautiful, bold green. This particular one right here, they call it assorted foliage. Why don't we label? Like I don't know why. This looks a little bit like a bromeliad, but I don't think that that's what it actually is. But I ended up getting this guy for $14.99 and half off of that, so $7.50. So especially if you're someone who's looking for maybe some gifts for the holidays, this is a good time to swing by Tractor Supply and grab some for yourself. And this particular variety is called Baltic Blue Pothos. Pothos do really good for me. They thrive on neglect. I have several pothos throughout my entire house, and I really liked some of like the Swiss cheese looking leaves. This particular guy was $19.99 and I got it for half off, so $10. Next I got this guy right here. And he is a ZZ. I knew that. This one is in particular is called Raven. And so as the leaves age, it turns to a darker color. I really like the look and the style of it. I believe ZZs aren't too fussy, but I've never grown one in my particular home before. But I love the contrast. I love the look. So I thought it would be fun to work with. It was also $19.99, so I got it for $10. And I purchased 2 of those. And then lastly, it doesn't look like much, right? This doesn't look great when you look at it starting out as a plant, but when you are there, kind of look what foliage is, not looking great and can be removed. And I know you're going to be like, why are you removing that big one right there? Let me cut away some of that stuff that doesn't look awesome. And we've even got a new leaf, and that's a new leaf coming up right there as well. But this one's looking really nice as well. Now this one does not listed, it does not have a tag in it either. I'll try to look it up and put it down below. This one was also $19.99 and I got it for $10. So basically I just wanted to show you some really good value that I saw on houseplants at Tractor Supply. Okay, with that being said, while I was at Tractor Supply looking at that, I came across their bulbs and their amaryllis bulbs. And I was really excited to see the quality of the amaryllis bulbs and also really excited to see how far they are along. I like my amaryllis bulbs either to bloom before Christmas or after Christmas. During Christmas isn't really when I want mine to bloom. I know that sounds weird. We're so busy during Christmas time, like right in that like week and a half to 2 weeks of Christmas. We're so busy. We're not typically around. We're traveling. We're all over the place. I don't really get to enjoy them. So I prefer for my amaryllis to start ahead of time, bloom ahead of time, or to bloom after. And these were just primed and ready to bloom ahead of time, which I was really excited about. So let's talk a little bit about an amaryllis. An amaryllis is a variety of lily. Typically they're measured in centimeters around, like measuring growing around the largest part of bulb, the bigger or the higher amount of centimeters, the better quality bulb, and the more likely you are to get multiple blooms. Now, there are a wide variety of Amaryllis bulbs, the different varieties and looks to all of them. You can get a lot of them that look nothing like Christmas. So if you're interested in growing them and you're like, oh, I don't care for the red and the white, they come in pink, they come in salmon, they come in coral, they come in greens, they come in a lot of beautiful varieties of colors. So you don't necessarily have to grow them for Christmas holidays. You can grow them for other kind of looks and styling. I went very classic this year and stuck to white and red, even though they had multiple varieties at Tractor Supply. The first variety is called Christmas Gift, and I'll put a close-up picture so you can see what that looks like. Just a beautiful white classic Amaryllis with like a kind of a limey green center towards the center, which I think is really nice. The other variety is called Red Lion, which is probably one of the most popular varieties you're going to see in big box stores, and it's just a classic beautiful red with kind of a darker center. Now, I've purchased Amaryllis bulbs from multiple places. I've purchased from big box companies. I've spent a little more and bought premium ones online. In the end, I'm not great about taking care of my Amaryllis bulbs. I let them bloom and then I forget about them, which is something I'm trying not to do this year. With that in mind, I don't feel comfortable spending, you know, anywhere from like $16 to $17 up anywhere up to like $30 for one Amaryllis bulb. And so going with a more cost-effective bulb like these were, I believe, $7.99. Yep, $7.99. $7.99 for a 30 centimeter to 32 centimeter bulb is great. I'm probably guaranteed to get at least 2 bloom stalks out of each of these bulbs, which is amazing. And so I feel really great about that price. I felt great about how these looked when picking them up. They weren't all smushy and gross, which you don't want a really smushy Amaryllis bulb because that means it's rotting. They were in good shape. I was able to select the exact bulbs that I wanted out of the container, which made me feel really good. And a lot of them already had their bloom stalks ready to go. Some of these are going to bloom within the next 2 weeks, which I love that they would bloom just after Thanksgiving. That is a great time of year. It's when I'm hosting parties over here, and also it's that time of year where I'm curling up with my kids and we're watching Christmas movies, winding down the end of school and getting prepped for the chaos of Christmas. So I planted these in a number of ways each year. I'll put some pictures up. I enjoy planting them in brass containers quite frequently. This year I decided I'm going to plant in terracotta containers. So let's shift these all over. Oh, I did want to tell you one thing. So when I brought these home, a lot of them had like bent over stems and such because they've been stored in a box and they were already growing. And that can be very like, oh no, I don't want, you know, a bent over flower. If you run across that, if you get one where all the leaves are bent over, they're basically all kind of messed up because they're reaching for the light. All I did is just take a little plastic pot and sit my bulb in it. And after these I've had these 3 or 4 days, these have straightened themselves up great. So you can do that ahead of planting, or you can go ahead and plant them already bent and they will right themselves. They will come right back up to straight up and down. So keep that in mind. Don't be discouraged if you find some that are more leaning than others. Okay, so I was determined not to go buy a bunch of stuff for planting up my Amaryllis this year. So I decided I really wanted to stick with my terracotta pots that I've been collecting. And they are old, you know, old looking. I love the old looking ones. I think they're so fun. You can use newer looking ones. You don't have to do terracotta. You can do other varieties of plants. You can do other varieties of containers. You can even just do a very simple vase, and you can actually plant Amaryllis by water, meaning you kind of set them on top of some stones and you fill up the water just so that it touches the roots. You can grow them very simply like that. I prefer to grow mine in soil. I think it's easier and I have to pay less attention to them, and you guys know that I'm all about that. And so what I wanted to do, I've got 6 bulbs. I've got 4 containers. I'm thinking about doing 3 in this larger container and then singles in these other containers. Amaryllis are not going to want to be planted in like one bulb in one large container. They really like to be hugged when they're planting, and the reason they like to be hugged is because that keeps the bulb upright and keeps it from shifting around, and that's extremely helpful when you're trying to create some type of presentation with your Amaryllis. This one is a little big for one, but we're going to go for it. These are optimal, about 6 inches. These are optimal size for the size bulbs that I currently have. This one, I'm going to put 3 in here. It's going to be a little tight, but we're going to go for it. Let's start by just taking these pots and just very simply filling them with a really just nice loose potting soil, something super basic. I'm not adding any kind of fertilizer. Right now, the Amaryllis has everything it needs in its current bulb. So you don't have to pump it full of fertilizer or anything like that. It'll be just fine as it is. So basically what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to fill this up with soil, not looking to pack it down a whole bunch, but I'm going to fill it to about 3 inches below the rim at this point, because I am going to go back in, settle in the Amaryllis, and then backfill it with some more. One of my big goals this year is to plant my Amaryllis in my garden, because y'all get on to me every year. We're going to do that this year. So basically, once mine are finished blooming, which is probably going to be right around Christmas time, I'm going to go ahead and do a film about what they look like afterwards, and then the care and how we're going to plant them outside in my particular zone, which is zone 8A. And I think that'll be really helpful to a lot of people who are wanting to, continue growing on your Amaryllis. It is a big expense. I mean, mine are cheap, and I'm paying $7.99 a bulb. That's a lot for me and for my world. And so I know some gardeners, they invest in the very designer, beautiful, unique blooms, and those are expensive, 20 bucks plus, per bulb. And so a lot of them will continue the use of those bulbs out in their garden. So we'll give that a try this year as well. Okay, so I've got my Amaryllis. This is obviously the upside because of the green plant. Typically, you're going to see a lot of roots at the base, which is going to tell you, in case yours isn't starting to leaf out, this will tell you where the roots are as well. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to snuggle this down just on the top like that, right? No big deal. And then I am going to backfill it with a little bit of soil. I do not want to go over the crown of the bulb. And you might be asking, Amanda, what is a crown of a bulb? Which I totally get that. I asked that the first time that I was planting Amaryllis as well. It's the largest part of the bulb. So you want to bring the soil from the bottom up to the widest part of the bulb and then stop. We don't want to go above it. When you start going above that, it can basically suffocate the bulb, lead to rotting. It can also work down into all these layers right here, which can increase rotting as well. But you're just going to bring your soil up to the widest part of the bulb, and you're going to stop there. So very simply, that's it. We've already got our first Amaryllis planted. So let's go ahead and knock out the other ones. Okay, for the one that's going to have 3, it's going to have all 3 of my red lion Amaryllis in it. And basically we don't really want the bulbs to touch all that much. So when we're nestling in here, I'm going to try to get them close to the edge, about an inch away from the edge, but then also clearing about an inch in the center from each other. And this can take a little bit of messing around, especially when you have multiple bulbs in one container, because we're going to put a little bit of soil at a time, stuffing it down the sides so that we can secure these in place. All right, there we go. Everybody feels pretty strong and secure in place. We have good clearance between the plants, about an inch, so that they're not touching. Typically, if they're going to touch, they're probably going to be okay, but you don't really want them to touch in case they will mold or rot in those areas. So you do want to give them a little bit of space. Okay, so this next part is the part that I really enjoy, and that's beginning to embellish the Amaryllis. And you can embellish them in a lot of different ways. I'm going to put up some inspiration photos as I'm talking. You can top them with stones. You can top them with glass stones. You can top them with moss, fake moss, or real live moss. You can top them with pine cones, acorns, lots of beautiful natural elements. I've seen lots of people tuck in like Christmas picks, you know, that you get from the craft store, and just surround it with beautiful faux Christmas foliage until the bloom actually comes up to bloom. You can do so many different things with them. And so today I'm going to go for a little bit of a natural approach. I'm doing a lot of green velvet and mixed metals in my home for this Christmas. And so that's the direction I really want to go with these. I'm going to start by topping them with a faux moss. And then from there, we're going to embellish with a couple of different things, including willow branches, where we're going to make almost a bird cage effect over this larger one. And then we're also going to be embellishing with some emerald kind of green, beautiful velvet ribbon and some gold twine. So let's go ahead and start with the moss. So I just buy my moss from any craft store. I actually seem to find pretty good deals on moss at Home Goods if you have a Home Goods by you. And this moss is just great for projects like this. I usually have some of it on hand, as sometimes I like to cover the soil of different plants just for, you know, a particular look. And basically we're just going to pull the moss out, and we're going to work with small little pieces at a time, and we're just going to tuck it down all around the edge of the bulb. I'm not trying to cover up the entire bulb. I want to see a little bit of it because I like the look of the bulbs. I think they're really cool, and I like seeing that kind of layered look with them. I think it's really pretty. I do think that this kind of moss is really expensive. So if you are someone who knows where to get this moss at a great price, let me know ASAP, please. Tomorrow I will be visiting the McKinney Vintage Market. Vintage Market Days is a company that travels around the country, and they do just these really cool markets with a lot of antiques and vintage items. It's super fun. It's tradition for my daughter and my mom to go. We all go together, and we go twice a year, once in November, once in May, because those are the only times a year they're here. And I love the Christmas one. I'm going to be taking you guys along for the ride and showing you that this is one of the places I get a lot of my treasures for my garden. People are always asking, and I do reference the Vintage Mart very often, so I thought it might be fun to do a video and show you all what it's all about. And I'll put a link below in the video description, because this company is all over a lot of different places, and so you can look them up and see if they happen to come to your area, if that's something that you're interested in. Okay, you could stop here and be perfectly fine. I'm going to push it a little bit further. I want to embellish a little bit, and I recently did one of those methods, and of course I can't remember this exact moment, where I took a bunch of my willow branches and I kind of wove them in and out and created this kind of like ring around in one of my garden areas. So I was thinking I might use the willow branches and go up as well. Amaryllis get really tall. Some of them can get up to 30 inches. And even like this one is getting close to blooming, it's still going to grow at least another 6 to 8 inches. And when they get really tall and then they have a ton of blooms on each stalk, they can get top heavy. And so having some kind of situation in here to support them is always a great way to go. I didn't want to go buy anything. You can buy just beautiful plant supports. A lot of times I just use a branch and I stick it in there, and I'll tie it with a bit of pretty ribbon to hold it up, and that works wonderful. But I thought we'd get a little bit more intricate with the willow branches today, so let's go cut some off the tree and then come in here and get to work on that. So we've already had rain today. So it's a little wet out here, but it still feels good. It's still chilly, but I like it. I think it feels really great. So what I'm looking for is, I don't want the absolutely thinnest branches. I want a little bit of size to them. Ooh, it's wet over here. And basically what I do is I come in, I find a branch I like, I pull it down as far as I possibly can, and then I cut on it. And then once I've got that going, I'm basically just going to pull off any additional branches or leaves on it, because I am going to want to go with the bare look on the branches, not leaves on the branches. And I just strip it down until I've got just a very simple singular branch to kind of work with, and then I'll make a pile of those. Okay, I'm going to work on a Lazy Susan. I think that'll be easier when I'm turning this as I'm working on it instead of scratching up my table. And I'm kind of looking for some stronger branches to start off with. And I don't think you have to do just willow branches. I think there's probably a wide variety of types of branches that you can use. I'm basically just going to start at this outside corner. The idea is that I want to just be able to bring it in like a situation like that. Now, this branch has multiple branches on it, so I'm going to use a little bit of twine to bind it all up into one and then stick it down into the container. Now that I think of it, I think I can get away with just taking one of the branches and like wrapping it really tight around the other ones, and then I don't have to use twine on it. Because like I said, I'm not trying to get this to hold forever, although if this technique ends up holding out pretty well, this would be really fun to do in some different containers for the spring, especially planted with bulbs. So then I'm just going to take the remaining branches and I'm going to work them down into the soil, just like that. I could go through this portion and I could go down a little bit lower. And I think that'll just lend more support over time as the Amaryllis grow larger. I think that I can use like a little bit of twine to secure it up here. I think would be kind of nice. So I'm going to take just one piece of twine and I want to secure this one a little more upright. You see how I'm moving that? And at this point, I'm just going to secure with a very simple knot and then trim it back. And I think that gives the overall structure a little bit more stability. I like it. Okay, so let's go into the smaller pots. I'm not going to be doing anything as elaborate as this particular one on the smaller pots, but I do want to do a little bit of something something just so that it has some support. This was so fun. Okay, let's talk about ribbon. Okay, so I picked up a couple of types of ribbon. Typically I would pick something for my stash, but I didn't really have anything that was really what I wanted. I actually wanted my ribbon to be a little bit more natural, but I only had time to run to one store, Michael's, and I just couldn't find exactly what I wanted. So I decided to stick with the green velvet theme that I'm doing throughout my house. And so I have this beautiful ribbon. Now I don't love the back side, and it is wired, which is a good and not so great thing. It's really good when you're doing things like this, like just putting a little bit of the ribbon around the edge of the pot, which we are going to be doing that, but it's not good for like a really natural look. But let's go ahead and start with rimming a couple of these pots. I think we're going to rim the smallest and the largest pot with the ribbon around kind of the pot lid. Okay, so I've got my Ryobi hot glue gun, and that's heating up right now. Let me go ahead and measure. And I'm not going to be creating a bow on this particular one. I do think this is going to go a long way to tie in what I'm trying to do with my decor this year. I don't change up my decor a whole bunch. I know it sounds like I probably do the way I'm talking about it. I have a lot of beautiful heirloom designs, pieces in my house, and I kind of just work off of those, and so I might change things up a very little bit. I'm going to take a little bit of this gold twine and I'm going to cover up just for a little accent. I'm going to cover up this twine up here. No bow, just a little bit of twine. And just putting a little bitty dab of hot glue. And then push my ribbon end onto it. Let this rotate all the way around. Might put a little bitty glue dot past partway through. Just like that. Adds just a little bit of Christmas pizzazz. I like it. Okay, same thing with this one. I'm putting just the smallest little bit of glue. I'm not putting much glue at all, y'all. You don't have to go crazy with the hot glue gun. See how the Lazy Susan comes in handy? And then just putting a little bit more glue like right here on the existing ribbon. It looks really pretty, y'all. I love it. Okay, I think they turned out really good. I'm going to show you in a few minutes how I'm going to set them up. So let's talk about continued care for Amaryllis. Okay, so these do need to be watered over time. You don't want them to dry completely out. My house tends to be a little more dry than most because it is a new build, so it's very tight and very energy efficient, which also means it is not humid in here at all. And so with that in mind, I will probably touch these up with a little bit of water once a week. I'm not saying drenching it in water. I'm just talking a little bit of a dribble of a water. I will have plates underneath all of these to catch water. I prefer to just dribble a little bit at the top and then allow the water to go down and then allow the plant to suck the water back up. I also like terracotta pots for this reason. It keeps the bulbs from getting overly wet because the terracotta will suck up some of the water too, which I think is great. If your leaves start to get really floppy, so you see these leaves right here are pretty strong, they're looking good. If they start to flop over really far, that is definitely a sign that your plant needs more water. Now, once these go ahead and bloom, typically each stalk is going to have anywhere from 3 to 5 blooms, depending on the variety and how strong and bountiful your bulb is. You can cut off the spent stalks, and then once everything is finished blooming, just allow this to kind of continue as a house plant inside your home, just in a warm, bright lit atmosphere, and allow the leaves to just grow on until you are past your last freeze or your last frost of the spring. So typically I'm going to move these out about the time that I'm going to move plants like my peppers or my tomatoes that I would be worried about getting that are really sensitive to frost. That's about the time I'm going to move these outside and put them in a nice bright place where they get lots of sunlight, and then they're able to replenish their bulbs for another bloom cycle. Now, I'm not going to go through that whole process right now because I'm still studying that process, but I will be putting on a video probably in January showing you what's going on with these plants just as a quick update. And then come spring, I'll do a video about how I'm moving my Amaryllis outside, what all I'm doing regarding that, just so you can follow along. Eventually, I'll just put these all into a little playlist for you so you can follow along. But I think it'll be fun to follow along myself as a beginner doing this because you can be unsure about it. It looks pretty easy. We'll see. It looks pretty easy. I think I can handle it. For me, it's just remembering to do the things. But I think it's definitely a possibility, especially growing these on as a house plant in my house until spring. That'll be pretty easy for me because I just have shelves in my kitchen that I'll pop these on. They'll do great. I can even put them on these shelves back here where they can take in sunlight, which will be awesome too. But let's get these set up and I'll show you what they're going to look like in their final location. Okay, this is just to give you a general idea. So these are my windows to the backyard. These are my winter curtains. They're just a really beautiful green velvet that I invested in maybe 3 years ago, and I pulled them out every winter. And so that ties into the green velvet ribbon that we have on here. So I've got my lamps back here and just all kind of natural feel, but these will have some really good light. I haven't really decorated for Christmas anywhere else yet. This is a really great start. I incorporated some brass elements because I love brass. So I've got the candlesticks here, and these are the fake LED candles that I absolutely love. And then I've got a little bit of these deer accents. These I collected at the vintage market, which I'm going to be going to on Friday. But I love the look. I think it complements very well with the wood tones of the furniture. I think the terracotta goes well with the feel and style of my home. I love all the natural elements. And when these begin blooming, this space is just going to be next level. All right, you all, I hope you enjoyed today's video watching me plant up Amaryllis. It's very, very simple, and you can get a beautiful high-end look without spending a fortune. As a reminder, each of these bulbs was $7.99. Great, beautiful size, 30, 32 inch, 34 inch bulbs. Absolutely beautiful, ready to bloom. I utilized the terracotta pots that I already had. The moss, I did buy the moss. All the willow branches were taken from my own tree, and then a little bit of the ribbon. So the expense was not that much, considering that I have this really beautiful, large design that will last me through January. These will continue to bloom and bloom. Some of them will bloom early, some of them will bloom later. The mass of the show will become before Christmas for me, but that's my preference. But these will continue to bloom, and then even after they're done blooming, we will have the green leaves for quite a while, so I can still leave this up as a winter display until they are ready to be basically put as house plants and tucked away for the late winter into spring. But I'm really pleased with how they turned out. I definitely think this looks very high-end compared to where I started. So, all right, you all, I will be having some Christmas series come up where I will be decorating. I hope that you'll join me. Within that is going to be mixing in a lot of new seeds. I'm actually going to be starting in December, which is super exciting. I'm starting way earlier than I typically do, but I'm hoping to get more of a jump for the spring. Very excited about that, and also really excited to continue doing some more planting outside and to start working on all my goals for 2024. All right, you all, as always, make sure you hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you know my latest videos are up, and be sure to check me out on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. As always, she's a bad gardener or decorator, anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.